Reminder to everyone, office hours are 5 to 6 on Sunday. They are completely optional, and you can attend either in person or on the Zoom link. If you want to like just practice getting into Zoom, office hours are a good place to do that. It is at the Erie 21 house, which is number 9 on the map. So we are in number 5 right now, which is the library. C is probably where you have been parking. And then number 9 right here is at the intersection of Fayette and Springfield. And that's where office hours will be. It literally looks like a house. It used to be the old alumni house, and I think they now share it with Erie 21. Office hours, bring questions. I will have nothing prepared. If you want to come and just hang out and hear other people's questions or just tune in on Zoom, that's totally fine. We do record them and post them to YouTube, just like classes. So if you get any answers there or have any questions, we'll have a recording available for you. But again, office hours is totally optional, no big deal if you can't make it. If anyone is getting super hot and just like wants to take a quick step outside, I apologize, it's so hot in here. Unfortunately, physical plant has already closed and it appears nothing that they can do about the temperature. So if anyone is really getting hot, I will not be offended at all if you want to like just take a step out or do like a quick lap around the library or whatever. Apologies in advance for the temperature. With all of that said, I forgot to put stand up in today's list. Let's kick off stand up. What did we learn yesterday?
Wireframe.
Yeah, what are the differences between those three?
Wireframe is the basic layout, like a page, without any details and frills.
Yep.
Mockup is like building on that. So that's when you put in a little bit more of the design aspect, but still more functionality. And then the prototype is all that together with like with the functionality.
Yep. Well. Normally it's like prototypes are for like navigation or having more clickable items where you can maybe scroll up and down, or so a prototype is much closer to the mock-up than it is to the final finished product. Obviously, because the final finished product will be all coded out and all of that. We downloaded a rectangle for the snapping. What else did we learn about Mac 101? Yep. 3-finger swipe up for mission control. Give me a quick thumbs up if you're feeling good about using your Mac. Give me a shaky or give me a thumbs down. Okay, awesome. Thank you for the instant feedback there. We will be doing a fair amount of that over Zoom as well. So yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head with all that stuff. The Mac is one of those things that you'll never learn all of it, right? The goal is to get you guys comfortable on it. And don't worry that over time, you'll settle into it more and more. So I know there was a lot thrown at you yesterday, but it is something that you will grow to love. And then if you ever go back to using Windows or you're using Windows at work, you're going to be like, oh man, I really wish it had, X, Y, and Z that my Mac has. So glad that you guys are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable on it. Don't worry, you will continue to feel more comfortable as you use it. Anything else from yesterday? Zoom? Yep, we got Zoom all set up, played around a little bit with virtual backgrounds. We got system preferences set up for privacy issues. So I want you guys to feel really comfortable sharing your screen. Doug and Larry are here tonight, who are graduates of the previous cohort, and they will know how often screen sharing was used in the cohort. Definitely do not feel like virtual is a barrier for you, right? So the best way to be able to help you is to be able Hold on, I can do it. If it's anything like mine,
It's like a freaking circle.
you go up and then grab it, come down here and pull it in.
It comes in this bag.
Well,
Goes into a circle. It comes out. It comes out.
so the trick is to treat it like a U, and when you treat it like a U, that automatically bends in. And then this is supposed to, this is a little bit bigger than mine, but it's supposed to just like
Slide in.
slide in. But I'm gonna let you figure it out from there.
Yeah.
It's the U that's the trick on mine. It's gonna explode in the car on your way home. Green screen. Sorry about that. Yeah, definitely want you to feel as comfortable in Zoom as you feel in a classroom, if not more. Definitely use screen sharing to your advantage. And then just make sure that when you start that screen share, it might be tempting to like click on one window and be like, oh, I want to show Max my code, so I'm going to share just that one. But what you'll find is we'll fix your code and then we'll want to go see what's happening in the browser to see if that's changed. Or so just keep in mind that when you start your screen share, oftentimes it's better to share your whole desktop instead of just sharing like that one window that you want to share. Also, screen sharing gets a little bit more complicated with two displays, but that's something that we will work through on Monday when you've got your laptop set up and all of that good stuff. Anything else from yesterday? What? Oh, yes, blogging on Medium about capturing your story as it is progressing. Lots of different blogging platforms out there, but something to think about this weekend when you got a little free time, settling into class, you're getting your first impressions, maybe just something to think about over the weekend of, oh, do I have some story that I would like to tell about this week or how it's going? Because before you know it, the whole program will be flying by. So important to capture that.
Learned about the CCEO side.
Yep, Center State CEO, kind of Chamber of Commerce plus, lots of stuff going on there. I know Laura had a meeting today with Liza and Kanan, and I think also Lisa, who's on the Erie 21 side. So we are starting to have that unified job effort together of just making sure we can place as many people as possible. Tomorrow, there will be a message that posts in the Career Coach channel. You guys don't have to worry about that. That's only for our graduates. Oh, good, you got it.
Was the short way. You was the short way instead of the long way.
Ah, okay. I was close.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are trying to kind of recapture all of our current graduates positions, but we will be following up with you guys. All of Laura's career modules are available to you. Friendly reminder, if you get through all of the modules, you get all of the discussion homework assignments done. You don't have to attend week 23 in class. You actually get to skip that week if you get all of the assignments done by that time point. Keep in mind that the beginning of the program is going to be easier and it is going to get progressively harder as we go. And that will also mean that you need to invest more time in the program the further into it we get. So not a bad idea to get a jump start on Laura's career modules. We're not forcing you into the job field. We're not saying you need to apply to all of these jobs week one or day one or whatever, but it is something to think about because the program gets harder and kind of getting a jump start on the career module stuff is a very good idea. Anything else from yesterday? Figma, yep, we got our account set up. We got access to their pro plan for free. If you did not go through that second form where you had to enter like, why do you want to use Figma? And you had to pick like school not in list. Definitely try and fill that form out. If you do not fill out that form within 7 days, they'll like lock out your account. So if you have not filled that out, that's certainly an important thing to do. Let me see if I am signed into my Figma and I can show you guys. I am not. Give me 1 second. Oh, come on. Oop. When you sign into Figma, you'll see over here, it says you're verified for Figma for Education. You can now create teams with all the perks of the professional plan for free. If you do not have that message, somewhere over here should be a message that says, hey, you're part of an education plan. Click here to get verified. That you only need to do if you don't have this little message on the side. So if you have that little message, you're good, you're all set up. We will be diving into Figma a little bit later tonight. Anything else to review from yesterday? Any roadblocks or concerns or general questions about anything coming up? Yes.
The portfolio that we're using for our homework,
Yes.
I'm looking at it and I'm not understanding here. Underneath the couple of the subcategories, cutting the copy.
Yep.
I don't know about the instruction.
Yeah, so good question. So let me pull up the assignment and we can go through that really quickly. Whenever we say copy, that's kind of like the content or the words that are going inside of that section. So kind of think old school of like a copy editor is literally someone who's just going to read like an article or a blog post or whatever that you've written and edit it for you. So the copy itself is like the words that you put into that section. So for example, I probably only put copy on an area where like you need an entire paragraph of text or at least a couple sentences. And so that's probably like the about section, right? For the contact form, you probably don't need copy for that section because it's just a form, you know, you fill it out, it's no big deal. So when I put the word copy in there, it's like more, hey, you've got to think through and make sure you've got a paragraph loaded into that section. As opposed to, you know, just like about and then not having anything in there. So the homework assignment for this weekend, again, due Sunday at 11:59, although no big deal, I'm in the wrong class. No big deal if you don't get it done. Just get it done as close to the due date as possible. It's create a mockup or wireframe in Figma that meets the portfolio requirements. Make sure to adjust your sharing settings in Figma. I'll go through that a little bit later tonight. But if you click on this link, this is your basic contact, your basic kind of portfolio site, right? So there should be your name should be on the home page somewhere. This is a portfolio for you. You should have a contact form section somewhere. Think through what a contact form needs to have, right? You want your name and an email address and maybe a message. So incorporate that into your wireframe. I don't have every specific requirement listed out here, but when you're working on your wireframe, you don't want to just say contact form. You want to think through what goes into that contact form. I need multiple fields. How am I going to lay that out? That's all things that you want to explore. And don't worry, we'll be going over Figma tonight and you're going to get a little bit more comfortable using that. You need an about section, and then that's the copy that I was talking about, the words that go into that about section. You'll want to think those through. If you want a testimonial section, you can definitely check that out. You're going to want a section to download your resume and the copy, the words that go inside that resume. You don't need your resume completely finished. We're not going to be publishing your portfolio site until week 5. So yes.
None of this is English. I have no job experience, never did a portfolio, don't know anything about a resume, no clue what any of this is.
Sure. So the resume is something you can work with Laura on. Everything else, think about any website you've ever been on. Think about going on someone's personal website. So I'll pull mine up. You can use mine as an example as you want. My name, my title shows up, right? Somewhere, it doesn't matter where it ends up, but somewhere you've got to have a link to your resume. You don't need to have your resume done. This is just a wireframe, right? We're not asking you to build all of this out. We're not touching any code here. This is just thinking through, how would I like to lay my site out? So from here, I have a lot of the requirements here. This is actually not a portfolio site because I don't have any projects that I've completed on it. But if you want to use my site as kind of a starting place to kind of explore out, I will put the link to my site in the homework assignment. And give me 1 second. I want to grab the other example.
So I have my own website as well, and I have like links to different ways of contacting me, but obviously there's nothing that has to do with like resume and I have an about section. So but this is not doing it myself, it was just a Squarespace, kind of. My way around it.
Sure. So you do have experience there, right? Like all of this is not foreign to you. You just said you've got your own site already.
I don't know what a portfolio is for a resume.
Okay, we'll get to the portfolio section in a second. And the resume, you just need a link. So you don't need your resume done. Keep in mind here that this is just a wireframe, right? We're not doing design. We're not pulling colors into this. This is literally, hey, how can I get these requirements laid out in a way that I think is going to be appealing? Because eventually we'll go in and build those portfolio sites together. We'll be building and coding out an entire portfolio. I can put 2 more examples on here. Give me 1 second. And oh, I don't know what final link is. So nope, I don't have it. So I will put this one in here as well. Let me save this. So this is another one. This is the portfolio project that we'll actually be building in class on week 4, I believe. And then we come back to it later in the curriculum. So this site does meet all of the requirements listed out in the assignment, right? So this is going to have an about section. This is having your contact form. This is the portfolio. And then when you click on one of the portfolio pages, it brings you to all of this other information here. Again, wireframe, right? So you don't necessarily need to have all those bullet points listed out, but you want to have some general idea of, hey, on my page, I'm going to have a summary and an objective section, right? And so the point of the homework in here is when you're going through these requirements, here are all of the things that you want to find a way to incorporate onto a page somewhere. It could be one giant homepage. You could have multiple pages. This is all about saying, okay, I know the project name needs to show up somewhere. Where is that name going to show up? So later tonight, we're going to be going through Figma. We're going to be training you on Figma, and we're going to be using that car project to do a basic wireframe. Then you get to take that experience and practice with Figma over the weekend and actually start building out another wireframe, just like the car wireframe, except with this content in it instead, right? I use content loosely because it's more about the layout. It's not about the actual words that are going in there, right? It's doing that planning step and figuring out, hey, all of this stuff will need to get on my website eventually. How would I like to lay all of that out? There is no right answer. I understand you guys are not designers. It does not need to look super pretty, but this is just an opportunity to work with Figma. If I can open up your Figma design and very clearly see a contact form laid out and an about section, and I can see that you kind of thought through each one of those sections, that's it. You'll get full credit for the homework, right? This is just an opportunity to practice with Figma. That is the main objective. It isn't necessarily the output of what you're building in there. Any other questions on the homework? I quit Chrome because there's been a memory leak that's been driving me nuts. Any questions on any of the homework for this weekend? Portfolio thing? Oh, it says requirements here inside the assignment. And if you click on that link, it will bring you into the requirements. Okay, so let's do a quick rundown of what we're doing today. We are going to get started with the software development lifecycle. We're going to watch a quick video on that, and then we're going to get into Kanban. We're going to watch another video on that. Then we're going to go into Trello and actually practice using a Kanban board. We encourage you guys to use Trello throughout the entire cohort to plan out your projects. It's a great way to manage your to-do list into to-do, doing, and done columns. So we're going to play around with Trello, and we're actually going to set up Trello for your portfolio wireframing that you're going to be doing this weekend. Once we're done with Trello, we're going to talk a little bit about project involvement and multiple stakeholders, identifying who's involved in the project, including a lot of technical people or non-technical people that you wouldn't normally identify. By then, we'll probably be around break time. When we come back, we are going to do a intro to Figma, and then we're going to break back out into our groups, and you guys are going to work on your wireframes, right? You're going to start building out the different screens that you guys were assigned, right? So you're going to start wireframing out the climate section or the navigation or the music or the persistent controls. So we're going to get hands-on practice with Figma there. And then we'll wrap up the night with a terms review at 8:20 and get you guys out of here. Any questions about what's up and coming today? Yes. Correct. Trello is what we'll be using in class tonight. So we're going to practice setting up a Trello board and creating all the different tasks that you'll need to complete for your wireframe for the homework. So the Trello is just an opportunity to practice with it. It's not a requirement for neither for the homework or for the whole course, but we use Trello. This cohort would not have, none of Careers in Code would happen if it weren't for Trello. So Trello is how we assign tasks. It's how we keep Karen in the loop as the program manager. It's how we run our weekly stand-ups to say, what did we get done? I think I can actually show you the Trello that we use to run this cohort to give you an idea of that. But we're going to get practice with it tonight. And then from there on out, it's kind of optional if you want to continue using it. If you already have a task management or project management flow, whether that's a notebook, whether that's a calendar, whether that's however you're doing your task management, you can continue doing that. We just like introducing you to Trello because that is the way Hack Upstate runs internally and does all of the project management to make sure nothing falls off the radar. Yep. We don't like teaching in a vacuum. So it's like, well, we could pull up Trello and say task 1, task 2, or we could set it up with the different requirements for the portfolio site. And then as you're wireframing, you can kind of track your progress as you're doing that homework assignment. Not a requirement. If you don't use Trello after tonight, that's totally fine. But we'll use the portfolio site as a good way to practice with Trello. Thank you for the clarification question. Important for that. Any other questions? Cool. Before we dive into content tonight, Doug or Larry, do you have any words that you'd like to share with the class or introduce yourself? Any advice?
Hello, everyone. My name is Larry. I graduated from 4-3. My piece of advice is lean on each other. I had a lot of stuff happen during the cohort, and my classmates and Max as well. They stood up and supported me real heavy. So I'm the type of person who don't really like asking for help. Don't be that person. If you need help, try to figure it out first. If you can't figure it out, definitely reach out. Everybody is available to help you. If they can't help you, they'll put you to the next person, which can, and that's very important that you actually ask for that help. And I learned that towards the end, but I still got to accept. You're gonna have to put in a lot of time to if you want to sign up. You know, get the most out of it.
Would you like to share your outcome as well?
My outcome?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So through my connection with Careers and Code, they partnered with Syracuse Surge Coding Apprenticeship, and a few of us got selected to participate in that program, and then I got hired as a software developer apprentice at Cherokee. This is something that I thought that I probably would never do. You know, when I was younger, I got in trouble for a couple of felonies. The time came home, I changed my life. And when I was in school for computer science, you know, one of my teachers said, working in Lockheed Martin, they want to interview the 12 year when we were 12-year-old. I said, well, I'll never get into the tech field. Turns out I was wrong. So that my connection with them, and then, you know, people in the community, definitely we get to my that right now. Awesome experience.
Big shoes to
Yeah.
fill.
I'm Doug. From the same cohort. Like Larry said, lean on people. There are so many people who are part of this program who just want to support you. Your instructors, your TAs, and like ask them questions. Don't think, oh, I'm stuck, but I shouldn't be. I don't want to ask for help. Ask for help. There's like no question that no one's going to question your questions. Everyone's going to just give you answers, help you get there. And lean on each other too, because if you're confused about something, I guarantee someone else in the class is also confused about that same thing. And when you come together and start talking about it, you can figure it out together. So just take advantage of all the resources, one-on-ones, chats, asking Max lots of questions. That's it. And like Larry said, you gotta do the work, you gotta study, you gotta keep up with it. And that's where asking for help comes in. Don't let yourself fall behind 1 week, 2 weeks, and now you don't know where you are. Day by day, get your homework done. Be ready at the end of the week, turn it in on the weekends. And if you don't, you know, then do it on Monday. Catch up the next week. That's it. Ask for help and stay on top of it.
And a reminder to everyone all right, you've heard it from a gazillion people, ask for help. How do I ask for help? If you go into Canvas, we've got a link to the Calendly links right at the top. So you can pop open those Calendly links. And here are all of our links, right? And a lot of the TAs are also in here. So if you've connected to anyone, if you, whether it's me, whether it's a TA, whether it's even a future instructor, right? Don't be afraid to just click on the link. When you pop that open, that will take you through. You can pick your meeting length. Try not to be greedy. If you think you can get it all done in 25 minutes, go for a 25-minute one. If you think you really need the help, you are welcome to book the 55-minute meeting. And it's kind of a trial and error, right? Because it's intimidating to get into the spreadsheet and be like, there's so many people here. How do I know who can help me, right? So over time, especially when we go virtual, you're going to get more interaction with the TAs. You may find some TAs more helpful. You may find that the personality fit is better with a TA than it is with me. That's totally fine, right? There's no hard feelings. You may schedule a one-on-one and get to the end of it and be like, well, that was a bust. I'm going to try a one-on-one with someone else next time. That's also totally fine, right? So I think a lot of our students, and it's not just cohort 3, like got halfway through the program and then realized that they really needed help, right? And that's when they started scheduling the one-on-ones. So the one-on-ones are available to you whenever, right? So attend office hours if you can, bring your questions to that. If you need help outside of that, I realize that we haven't gotten much to the coding yet. But we will be diving into HTML starting on Monday. So these Calendly links are here. I find probably a third of the students will be scheduling a one-on-one about every other week. We encourage you to do that with one of our mentors or instructors or TAs, only because it's really important to have that individual one-on-one attention. And to be able to kind of voice where you're at and your journey as you're going through it, and then also identify those pain points. So we recommend a one-on-one every other week. If we see that you're starting to slip behind, we do have an academic warning set up where we start mandating those one-on-ones. But that's going to be very clearly communicated to you. We're going to loop Jason into the loop at that point as well. And when that does happen, you'll get a little heads up. Then you'll get the academic warning and we'll have the requirements set out for you, right? Of, hey, you're 3 homework assignments behind and you haven't completed any of the quizzes and you're not really touching base with any of the instructors. Here's what we would like to do to get you back on track. Most of our students appreciate the requirements. They go through, they hit those requirements dead on, they come out of academic warning and they get back to regular academic standing. The point of academic warning is saying, hey, we want to make sure that you're getting these additional resources and that you know what the right steps are to get you back on track. So it is not meant to be a scary thing. It is meant to say, hey, why are you off track? Let's make sure we identify the problem and come up with a solution for it. It has nothing to do with Calendly links. But if you need help, definitely reach out to it. Even if you don't need help, there may have been a student in the room that's scheduled weekly just to chat, and that's also totally fine. However you want to use these one-on-ones, they are available to you. Your taxpayer money at work, all of the grants that fund this program are paying me to meet with you for one-on-ones. So use them because they are completely free to you, and everyone in this program definitely wants to see you succeed. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't think it is a sign of weakness, because that is not how it is perceived for us at all.
If you don't do it, you want to wait for the end, and feel like you're down. If you want to be reaching out, so it doesn't feel like you're down. If you periodically go out, as much as you do.
Yeah, reach out when you're on top of this stuff. You go on and talk about what you did. Max would, if I was doing good one week, I would talk to Max and he'd just give me some other things. So you don't have to be behind to meet with people.
Absolutely. Okay, any questions about that?
I just want to say something.
Yeah.
So everybody here is right now is at like a different level with what they know technologically, right? I came into this program, I didn't know anything. I didn't know any terms. I didn't like you know, everything was foreign to me. You will get it, and you will understand it. And 6 weeks from now, you're gonna be like, my God, how far I've come. So just remember all the progress that you're making. The other thing that I want to tell you is when you guys start doing projects and you start showing your projects and your tests, everybody's going to be at a different level. Don't compare yourself to somebody else. You might be like, oh my God, this one, they have such a, I'm never going to do like that. You can't do that. It took me, I don't know, we were in probably 6-8 weeks before I finally stopped doing it myself. Everybody was like, oh my God, they have all this amazing stuff and I get nothing. And then I know it's easy to say, you have to keep reminding yourself. I need to focus on what my project is and what I'm accomplishing. They're a different, there's somebody else there doing their own thing. It's so easy to start remembering that, but you will. And then 24 weeks from now, you're going to be graduating and you're going to be showing everybody what you have done. And be proud of those accomplishments. It's a lot.
All right, we're going to dive into the SDLC. Yeah. So your capstone project, we won't start looking at that until week 4. Basically, the feedback that we've gotten on the capstone, while it's a really important project, when we started out in week 1 or week 2, there's this overwhelming feeling, right? Of like, I can't build a project like that, right? And so we listened to our students and we were like, you're right. That's why we're teaching you how to build a project like that. But we don't want to introduce that stress to you and get you thinking about that until you have some of the skills to get started on that project. So I'm pretty sure it's week 5, we'll introduce the capstone, we'll lay out all of the requirements for it, and then we'll also lay out an entire roadmap of 4 or 5 check-ins that will complete at the end of the modules to make sure that you guys are on track. So the capstone is going to be even more structured than it was in cohort 3, in that we're going to lay out, hey, at this point, you should have this much done, right? We're not going to, get you in trouble if you're not caught up or if you're struggling, but we're going to help you get those additional resources, make sure you catch up. So the capstone is meant to be what you show off at your graduation, right? The capstone is meant to take everything that you've learned throughout the program, build something that is your own personal passion project, and show that at graduation and demo it. So we've had everything from grocery apps where you can add a bunch of items to your grocery list and it will show you the shortest route through a grocery store. We've had students do a walking tour app where, based off of the GPS, it would play an audio file. If you were like close to the building, it would play a little history. We've had students do archery apps where you could place where your arrow landed and it will like keep track of score for you. We've had students do like business directories where you can load up a database of a bunch of local businesses and kind of navigate around. We've had really a wide range. And to Karen's point, don't compare yourself, because all of those apps met all of the requirements and then some, right? So we put the requirements bar relatively low so that you have the freedom to be able to build whatever you want for your capstone. So what we'll do, and what you should set up one-on-ones for once we introduce the capstone, is once you have your idea, you can work with me or any of the mentors to pare down that idea to what we call the minimum viable product, the MVP. And so we start looking at that, we start breaking down your app, and all of the stuff that we did 2 days ago for the requirements planning, that's what you'll start to do for your capstone. But all of that is coming in week 5. We don't want you to stress out about that, because we got to get those basic skills before we can ask you to build or start building your capstone there. So what you can start doing between now and the official capstone introduction is just start thinking through what would be a cool thing to build? What would be a cool website or web app that I could build that's going to showcase off everything that I have learned throughout this program? We've had some people do video games using JavaScript, which is cool. There are a couple of gaming frameworks for that. We've kind of had a whole spectrum of things. But we'll make sure that you are hitting all the requirements throughout those check-ins throughout the program, and we'll go from there. Does that answer your question? Cool.
So, okay, the word capstone is being final project.
Yeah. Yep. In this context, yeah.
It's like the final stone of a building or something.
Yeah, that's the cornerstone, right? Now, is it the capstone?
Is it single piece?
For this purpose, it's the final project.
There's either the cornerstone or the capstone in masonry is like the last brick that they lay in order to complete the building, and then they like dedicate that as the capstone, because that's signifying that the building is completed and finished. And so that's what a capstone refers to, is like your final ending. Hey, I'm finished. I made it all the way through. But yes, final project is a great way to think about it. Any other questions? Cool. So we're going to dive into the software development lifecycle. we'll have new features. We'll need to start planning out those features. We need to start designing that in our user interface. Then we code it all out. Then we need to go into testing, right? That cycle continues over and over again. So important to recognize here that we really like to be in phase 4, right? Which is all about development. That's where we say, hey, we're developers, right? That's our phase. But the reality of it is that that's not our only phase. We are going to get involved in every other step in that process. Because what happens when it goes to testing? The testers are going to find things that we need to fix. What happens when we go into the planning phase? Well, the company's going to want the developers in the room to make sure that they understand all of the requirements which come in the next step, right? So this software development lifecycle, whether or not your company recognizes it explicitly, is how software gets built. And you may be responsible for every single step in this software development lifecycle. If you're working at a small company, if you're working at a company that doesn't have a ton of project planners or doesn't have a ton of other developers that you're working with, it's important to identify all of this, because when your boss comes to you and goes, I want this new software, I want this new feature, I want whatever, it's very easy as developers to go right to step 4. But it's important to recognize not only all of the steps that come before it for all of the planning, but all of the steps after it. Because once our code is done, we don't just say, well, it works on my computer and toss it out, right? We need our DevOps to come in and deploy it. We need our testers to come in and deploy it. And maybe you're at a company that doesn't have testers. Well, guess what? You take that development hat off and put on your testing hat and say, okay, what kind of testing plan am I going to come up with in order to be able to execute on that? My God, do we have AC? It is AC. We might not actually melt tonight. Yeah, if you guys are feeling hot or want to go grab a drink, like feel free to you don't need to raise your hand or anything. Just feel free to step out. Sorry again for the heat. Any questions on the software development lifecycle? I know it's all kind of common sense, but that is a very common interview question of what is the SDLC? And while you probably won't be required to name all 7 phases off the top of your head, it's important to be able to recognize that what that process looks like. Any questions on that? Okay, I got one more video tonight, then we will go on break. When we come back, we will get Trello set up, and then once we get that done, we'll transition into Figma and get to the car design half of class. So one more video on Kanban for you guys. This is a different guy and a little bit shorter.
Kanban is a work management system designed to help you visualize your work, limit work in progress, and maximize efficiency, which we call flow. Kanban is the Japanese word for visual signal. With
recording. So you can sign up for a Trello account here. You can also just hit your continue with Google button, and that will take you through using a Google account, whatever's better for you. Go ahead and get through that account creation process. I won't go through step by step, but I'll just give everyone a minute. Trello.com, create your account, sign in. Eventually, you should get to a screen that looks like this, or potentially looks like this, roughly. So that's what you want to get to, is this screen right here. Yeah. Take you to Trello, no trial. If you've gotten to this page that says to do, doing, and has tested, reviewed, and done, you're at the right spot. Or the page that has the Trello logo up at the top and it says create your first board. If you've made it to that screen that says create your first board, you can go ahead and click on that and create your first board.
Just to make sure, we wouldn't be seeing like starting boards.
No. So
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a link already.
up at the top, if I hit the plus here and go to create board, I can create whatever I want. So I'm going to say portfolio project. I'm going to create that in my workspace and hit create. And that should take me to this blank board. If you want to start from a blank board, you can just go up to the plus up here at the top and drop down to create board. And then you can call that board portfolio project and pick whatever background you would like and create it from there. Nope, you're good right there. Hold on for 1 second.
It's saying that I have to name my workspace.
You put it in as your name or just call it workspace or whatever you want.
And then start your trial.
Is there an option to not start a trial?
Give me the trial.
Yeah, and then you can do at the top, there's a create button. There. And then you can create board. You can call it like portfolio project. You can choose a different background if you would like. Yeah, thank you. And then hit create button. Go. Okay, so everyone made it into a board. So once we are in our board, everything is broken down into lists. Lists are what are going to hold our cards. So I'm going to go ahead and say add a list, and I'm going to break this down into the 3 most basic Kanban lists. So I'm going to say to do, doing, and done. Now everyone has a different flow. If you want to do a block column, if you want to do a today column, that's totally fine. Once you are in Trello, you can go through and you can add a card. A card is a task, right? That's the item that's going to hold all of the information that we want to accomplish. Because this is our portfolio project, we need some kind of home section, right? So we are going to say home. Okay. We also have a couple other sections. We had an about us, we had a contact, and we have a portfolio section. So I'm just typing those in and I'm hitting enter. Those are creating all of the cards for me. Now I want to put in additional information about that, right? Because I'm thinking about my home section and I'm like, what should my home section have in it? So I'm going to pop open home and I get access to all kinds of information in here. I get access to a description field, right? So I can say the first section that loads on my home page. I can go ahead and save that. Now I've got a description in there. So when I actually get around to doing this task, I can jump in there. I can also do things like assign members to the card. Obviously, that's not as important for individual personal projects, but when we're working in a team, that's how we assign who's responsible for getting this task done. We can also add in little checklists. So I'm going to just hit the add button there. Now I've got my checklist. All right, what should my home section have? It should have my name. It should have maybe a little tagline, and maybe it can have a button to scroll down the page. And now that I've got that in there, I can easily check those things off as I complete them. And also do that in reverse. Obviously, I can uncheck things as well. So I can also put a date on here. I can say, hey, I need to have this section done by Sunday, right? Because the homework's to do that. And I can even set a time in here and hit save. And it will also send me a reminder. So you can download the Trello app if you wanted like a push notification reminder of this. So I'm going to hit save on there. And then down here, I can also leave a comment. So if I'm interacting with a team, I don't want to just go in Slack necessarily and talk to the person about the task, because that conversation is relevant to what we're working on, right? So what I may do is come in here and write a comment. Maybe I'm working on this task. I know I'm not going to complete it today. So I come in here and I leave myself a little comment. So when I come back the next day, I've got a log of all of these items. So in order to start using the Kanban board, you can take this home card and just drag it over into your doing column. That's how we're going to track our status, right? And so we've got our to-do, doing, done. And when that task is finally finished, we come over here and we put it in the done column. So obviously, this is a very basic, simplistic example, but you guys have so much going on, everything that you're learning. Maybe it makes sense to do a careers in code board where you can create your homework assignments in there. And then, oh, there's also those pre-reading links that I may want to bookmark and have in here. So maybe I created another card for that. Maybe I create just one card for my homework, and maybe I have an entire board for it, right? So your capstone is going to be a big enough project. You're going to have enough to track in there that warrants its own board. So Trello is something that we just like to expose you to. It's a very easy tool to use. The hard part is learning the project management that it takes to use a tool like this. And so when you're working with requirements documents and getting past that phase in the software development lifecycle, it may make sense to start loading up your cards in here before you lose track of the requirements, because this system makes it much easier to track what do you have left to do, what are you doing, and what is done, and allows you to put in more context to those tasks so that when you get halfway through it and have to go work on something else, you've got everything contextualized into it. So I'm going to switch over to my board, which is the Dean of Students board. This is what we use to keep track of all the work that the program managers are doing, that Jesse is doing, and that I am doing. So you'll see up here at the top, there is a create folders and blank outlines using the template in Google Drive. And so I've got Ariel assigned to this, right? And if you pop open that card, I've got a little description and a link to a document. And I said, hey, this is shared with your HackUpstate account. So they know where to sign in. And then I also have a checklist of, hey, I need you to go create all the outlines for every day's class, right? And I've got all of this in here. And then I say down at the bottom, tag me in this card when this is done. Because oftentimes, people will move their card into the done column and I won't even know, oh, I need to go check on that and make sure all of that's done. So what Ariel will do is come down here and in the comment say, hey, Max, this is done, go check it out. That is such a common workflow, though, that in addition to our kind of our regular backlog, our to-do list and our in-progress list, we have this QA review list. So Ariel could take that card, put it into QA, take themselves off of it and add me as a member and say, hey, now you're responsible for making sure this is done and gets over the finish line. So you can see that we've got a lot of stuff in here. We use the dates feature, we use the comments, we use the checklists, we use descriptions, right? This is how we make sure that this boot camp goes off without a hitch. So we meet every week, we pull up this board and we talk through what did we get done, what's coming up this next week, and do we have anything in that blocked column that we need to talk about? Hopefully that's sounding very familiar to how we run stand-up at the beginning of class. And that's how most teams run if you're using this agile methodology, right? Which is a principle of how to do project management. Agile and Kanban boards go hand in hand. Any questions about Trello? I know this is the, yeah. Let's take a look.
So
because you're in on your phone, you should have an account already. You go to log in. And then did you sign in with one of those accounts or did you create one? Okay, so go ahead and do your email in there. So from here, go pull up your email on your computer. That's what you have to log in to get.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta do it from there. When you're using each editor password, you're using your email authentication. Okay, any other questions on Trello? Do you see kind of how you would use this? I know it's really simplistic overview, but having a project management tool like this, even for projects that you're working on yourself, super helpful in being able to track that and kind of get things out of your brain and just planned out somewhere. On the free plan, you can have up to 10 boards, and I don't think there's a limit on the number of cards or lists you can have in a board, or if it is, it's a pretty big list. One thing I will show you is because I don't necessarily want to keep this board around, if you go up to show menu here and go down to more and scroll down here, you can close this board. And that will delete everything on the board and give you one of your boards back if you come anywhere near that 10 limit. So if you just hit go ahead and close that, then it's going to close it out and essentially delete that board for you. You can go into the oops. If you go to Trello and find it in your workspace over here, I'm pretty sure you can recover it from there. You can reopen it, and then if you really wanted to, you can permanently delete it. And that's what I'm going to do on this one because it's just an example. But just a tool we like to introduce very early on, only because we use it so much that it would be very hard for us to be able to pull off this boot camp without it. Any question? Okay, let me head back to the outline. And now I think, okay, so a quick note on project involvement and multiple stakeholders. A lot of people involved to pull off a project. Obviously, there are developers on the team. Then there are the people working directly with those developers, right? So quality assurance, QA, is kind of your software testers. They are the people who are testing out your software and trying to break it before a real end user can. So they're the people who are, putting -1 into a field and seeing if you add a negative number or if something blows up. They're the people who are not filling out any of the form fields and hitting submit and seeing if the software will let them get through there. All kinds of quality assurance that can happen on software. And that is a full-time job, right? Those are people who may not necessarily have the skills to complete an entire coding application, but know enough about software engineering to kind of break the code and figure out how to break it before your end users actually can. You're going to have a project manager who has a very good chance of being someone who is not your actual manager. So your team lead is going to be responsible for kind of all the HR stuff and clearing roadblocks. And they're going to be who your manager actually is, who you report out to. But often on a team, you will have about 6 software developers. You'll have about 3 QA people, give or take. And then you'll have the project manager who is separate from your actual manager. That project manager's job is to make sure Trello is always up to date. They are the people who are going to run your stand-up every morning or afternoon or whenever you happen to have it. They are going to be the people leading your sprint planning. Sprint planning is another agile methodology for project management. Sprints usually are 2 weeks. It just depends. And the whole point of a sprint planning is to say, what did we get done in the last 2 weeks? What did we say we were going to get done? What did we actually get done? Let's look at that and identify any problems. Then let's look at what we are committing to getting done in these next 2 weeks. Let's make sure that we understand all the requirements. Let's assign that to our team members. And once the team members are assigned, make sure everyone knows what they're doing. And then we go out and we try and go and do those tasks. And it's the project manager's job to run stand up every day, check in and say, hey, something's in the block column. Are you still blocked here? Can I help you clear that roadblock? What's going on there, right? Project manager's job is also to take those requirements that are coming from other project stakeholders, kind of the business requirements, and break that down into the individual tasks that the developers can work with. That is called loading up the backlog, right? That's taking these requirements and breaking them down into actionable items. Oftentimes you'll find a project manager thinks about the way of accomplishing a goal slightly different than the engineer who's actually going to go and execute that. So that's a lot of communication between you as the developer and the project manager in order to make sure that the cards are written in a way and the requirements are included on those cards in a way that you can actually go and implement them. So other project stakeholders, oftentimes you will have a business analyst. The job of a business analyst is to be the middleman, the middle person, I guess, should be more accurate, between the business team, the actual end users, and the developers. So they're the ones working with the business team, understanding what the software can and can't do, and helping your project manager understand the requirements of the project. Oftentimes you'll have a project owner that is on the business team. They're the ones that are kind of signing off on everything, saying that the project is finished. And then, of course, you have end users. They aren't necessarily involved in the entire software development process, but at the end of the day, that's who you're building the software for, right? And so it really depends, as always, the size of the company, how many people are involved in the project. But whenever you get involved in a new project, when you guys get out there and you get the code base, it's important to recognize that it's not just developers on your team that have already coded out a lot of this. It's important to understand the project from the end user perspective, right? Let me put this code aside. I want to understand what this project is doing. I want to understand who's using it. I want to understand the features in it and why people use this software. Once you get that done, it is so much easier to get into the project, but you're going to be CC'd on a bunch of emails and you're going to be like, I don't know who any of these people are, right? And that's when you want to talk to your manager, not necessarily the project manager, and say, hey, engineering perspective aside, coding aside, who's involved in this project? What are the different roles going on? Because oftentimes that is formally documented and you can actually go take that information and compare it to an org chart and say, oh, now I understand this is an actual end user. I've got context on them now. I can understand why they're using this software, and now I can make that software better for them. I interned at AOL, yes, that AOL, back in the day, and I ran out of tasks, which is a sign of poor project management. And I was literally there like twiddling my thumbs, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So my project manager should have loaded things up to me, loaded up things for me, but instead I didn't have anything to do. So I literally left the corner that they shoved all the engineers in, and I went down to the section of the people actually using the software I was working on. And I just sat there and I said, do you mind if I sit and watch you use the software? And they were like, you're an engineer. We don't get access to your, like, our swipe cards literally don't let us into your corner of the office. Like, what are you doing down here? And I'm like, well, I'm bored and I have this software and I want to be working on it. Can I watch you use it? And so I'm going through and I'm watching them use it, and there's this one screen that's taking like 3 minutes to load. And I'm like, that's really slow. That doesn't take ours 3 minutes to load in our development environment. So I went up and I realized that we had like 10 rows in our database and they had 30,000 rows in their database. And that's why it was loading so slowly. So I went in and I realized, oh, they had code looping over more than they needed to. They put a loop inside of a loop. And that was causing it to literally exponentially, the more rows we had, the slower it was loading. So I fixed it. I found that code, I debugged it, I took that line out, I put in the ticket, it went through quality assurance, they signed off on it, it hit our users like 2 weeks later by the time it had gotten deployed. And all of a sudden, my manager is getting all of these emails that's like, you fixed the slowest part of the software, like, we've been complaining about this for months and months, thanks so much. My manager came to me and was like, I saw you fix this, how did you even know, like, that wasn't even on our roadmap? I said, well, I went and I talked to the end users. And that was like revolutionary for them, that an engineer could communicate directly with the end users. So something to think about is that software projects never exist in a vacuum. There always needs to be a developer and a user. And oftentimes there are multiple levels of job titles in between there. And while all of that can make the developer's job easier by focusing on what they need to focus on to get the actual code done, it's important to be able to identify all of those levels in a project and make sure you understand the people's roles involved in that project before you start working on it. Yes.
Touch on like the cost effectiveness of code from a user standpoint?
We won't. That's normally done kind of higher up. And normally developers aren't involved in that. That's kind of, if you look at the software development lifecycle, that's done in step 2, which is in the requirement. What's actually done in step 1, which is like, before we even get to the requirements, we need to talk through how this is going to impact business, how many hours it's going to take, and then like how many full-time engineers it's going to take on that. So I've actually never done one of those analyses because I've always worked at a smaller company. But that is definitely something that, you know, the impact on the bottom line is something for your manager or for someone hopefully to consider. Yeah. Any other questions? I know a lot of this is common sense and boring, and but it's important to expose you to it now so that while you're working on those projects and ultimately hit the workforce, that you're prepared for, you know, non-engineers to really be driving the work that you're doing as an engineer. Cool. I am going to move on to, before we dive into Figma, we're going to get back into the car wireframing project. So I said a whiteboard is my favorite way to wireframe. That is holding true tonight. So we are going to start with our first wireframe. So I'm literally just going to draw a rectangle, and this is the car's touchscreen. Whatever we're going to put into this, we need to design out now, so that when you get into Figma, it makes it much easier to identify the objects that are going to get added and all of that stuff. So where do we start on a wireframe? Now you've all broken down into your teams. Where should we start with this wireframe?
The 5 buttons for the 5 groups.
What are the 5 groups?
Music, navigation and maps.
Yep.
System status.
And climate. Okay, so there are 5 groups. Where do we go next?
Into those individuals.
Yeah, so we need some way to be able to switch between these, right? And so we've got a 15-inch screen. We've got a lot of real estate to work with. But the problem that we run into is that if we're in any one of these cannot block access to any of the others. So, yeah.
Icons?
we're gonna start with icons, and where are those icons gonna go? They're gonna go in our bottom toolbar. So yes, we just made a toolbar, and in that toolbar, we need to decide what's going into it. So we can do music pretty easily, right? And I'm just gonna write out the word music because I'm not gonna attempt to draw an icon on myself. Okay, so music, we've got that added. We need to figure out what that button is gonna do. But when we do that, that's another wireframe. Right now, we're just thinking through the structure of how do we interoperate with all of this. Nav. We can put nav down here. So we're going to say, okay, we put nav in our toolbar. We're good to go there. Now we say controls. Well, we always need a way to get to the controls. So we're going to add in controls down here. Climate. Same thing, right? We need some way to control the climate. So we put climate in here. Now we get into system status, and I think we actually called this persistent. What does persistent mean? It's always on the screen. So we can't just put a word status down here because it's got to be persistent. If we go in any of these other sections, we can't always have that status on the screen. Okay, well, even in this basic wireframe, we've already dealt with persistent. How did we deal with persistence? We put a toolbar in and we said, no matter what's on the screen, that is always going to be there. Well, there's no reason why we can't just make another section of the screen persistent. So what happens if we just draw a line here and we say all of our persistent information is going to show up somewhere in that rectangle. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say persistent.
Do you want to put a home screen button?
So we don't need a home screen button because whatever one of these is active is what's going to show up here. Whatever needs to always be on the display is going to show up in that section. That's it. We just created our first wireframe. Now we get to build it in Figma. So I'm going to head over to Figma. I believe everyone has created their accounts. And what I am going to do, do you guys have access, or you know what? Do it like this. Over on the left-hand side, it should have something that says car. If you click on car here, click on careers and code maybe, and then that shows up. And then you can open the untitled. Let me make sure this is the right one. Yeah, we can use this one.
I don't have it on the left, but I have it in the middle.
Okay, so we're going to start with the very basics. If you guys all want to like move your mouse so it's like all the way up in the left-hand corner, that way, or maybe stop moving your mouse and that will make them go away, maybe slowly. So it's not complete chaos here. Okay, so in order to get started in Figma, we've got to have a frame. So if we click on this little rectangle tic-tac-toe looking thing, we can just draw a frame out of whatever we would like. If you're in that mode, you'll also notice that they give you a bunch of different screen sizes over here. So if you want to create a frame and you're saying like, oh, I'm designing for a screen, like a specific device, you can click on iPhone 14. And that is the screen ratio of the iPhone 14. So there are some built-in frames there as well. So the first frame we're going to do, I'm going to just draw out a frame. And then over here on the right of this toolbar, I can adjust any of the numbers in here. So a typical screen size or ratio is 1920 by 1080 because that's HD, right? That is the resolution of HD video. So I'm going to say the width is going to be 1920 and the height is going to be 1080. Now we run into this weird, I can't fit all of that on the screen. So I'm going to use traditional iPhone touchscreen tactics. I'm going to take my 2 fingers on the trackpad and just pinch to zoom out. Now you can also adjust the zoom up here in the corner. So if you wanted to, you can like type in 25 and it will just zoom you down into that right level. And the way I'm moving around, right, the way that I'm scrolling horizontally or vertically is again 2 fingers. So the 2-finger scroll works not only up and down, but also left to right. So I can go left to right here or up and down, and I don't have any issues. Okay, that rectangle looks a whole lot like this rectangle. So what we need to do is start breaking that up so we've got a template to work with. So I'm going to create a new rectangle by going to the rectangle tool up at the top. And I know that's the rectangle tool because if I click on it, I get access to all of my different shape objects in there. So I'm going to go down to my rectangle and I'm going to just draw out my toolbar. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Now I want to get my little icons working, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the text tool and I'm going to draw an area down here. And I'm going to zoom in on that. And I want to work with an emoji. I'm going to put an emoji in for my icon. So on the Mac, you can hit Control, Command, and Space, and that's going to pop up the emoji picker. And what did we say is going on down here? It's our controls. Well, when I think of controls, I'm controlling the car. So I'm going to get a car emoji. And I'm going to put that in. And there it is, super teeny tiny, right? So I'm going to highlight that. And I'm going to go down to my text. And because emojis are actually text, adjusting the font size is going to make the emoji much bigger. So if I go up to like 256 here, there's my car, maybe a little too big. Let's go down to 200. 175. Okay, there's my little car. And I can go back and kind of position that wherever I want. And then I'm going to make another text by just drawing out. And I'm going to say controls. And obviously that font size is way too big. So let's go down to 32. And I can now take my controls and drag that to where I want it to be. Fix that rectangle too. So there's my little controls icon. Okay, now I get to keep going here. So I'm going to say, all right, I also need my music icon. Music next? Yeah, music. So instead of creating a new text object, I'm just going to take that emoji, Command C, Command V, and drag it over. And now I can click into that text shape, delete out my car, Command C, Control Command Space, and now I need my music. So I'm going to do a search for music.
Where are you finding what they mean?
So Command C, Command V is always copy and paste. And then the Control Command Space is just built into the system. So there's no like breakdown of that. That's like just how to trigger the emoji picker at the system level. And then from there, we're gonna pick our little music icon. And now that shows up. And we're going to take our controls, copy and paste that over, and we're going to call that music. Okay, so you guys get the idea of that, right? Now we want to control our persistent screen. So we're going to set up this template so that when we break out into groups and you guys start practicing with Figma, you guys have this all set up and you can focus on whatever section of the screen you're working on, right? So the idea here is when you click on climate, the climate team is going to design their interface built into this section of the screen. The control section, the music, and the nav are all going to build their interface in here. The only people who get to work with this pane over here is the persistent team. So the persistent team needs to go back to that requirements list and say, what always needs to stay on the display? okay, the speed, where are we gonna put the speed? Where does it make sense to the end user that the speed is very easily viewable, right? Because what you wanna think about is if I'm sitting here driving my car, the touchscreen is gonna be right over to the right of me. So what's gonna be important is the information in the top left part of the screen, because that's where we start to read. That's human nature to say that is the closest to me, that's gotta be the most important information. Same with the nav screen, right? Okay, what's the most important nav function? It's probably gonna be entering an address. I can't put anything over here because that's the persistent key. So I need to put my enter address probably up here. Okay, but what about all the other functions? What happens when I'm in a route? Okay, well, what you may need to end up doing is creating multiple different screens to show that information. Because the screen that shows up when you're entering an address is going to be very different than the screen that shows up when you're in the middle of a route and you may need to cancel the navigation, right? So what you may end up doing is creating multiple wireframes to show the different versions of the screen. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to create that little persistent section. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to go into my rectangle. And instead of a rectangle, I'm going to just pick a line. And so when I pick my line, I can grab my arrow. And if I draw it down, you see how it's kind of all over the place? If I hold the shift button down, it will force a straight line. So I can drag that down to the bottom. And you'll notice it does a little snapping for me. And I can say, all right, that's a little too small, right? We want the persistent area to maybe be a quarter of the screen. So I can drag this over and it's going to snap to different sections for me. So I'm going to put that there. And now when I'm looking at that, that's a teeny tiny line that you can't even see on the projector, right? So what I can do is I can pick that and I can adjust the properties of it over here. So I can go down and I can say, believe it or not, that is a black line, but it's this tiny little 1 thickness. So if I click on that, I can say, oh, I want that to be 10, and I get a much thicker line. So I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to take this whole frame. Oh no, how did we end up in 2 frames? Just drag that out so we're all in the right frame, hopefully. Okay, and I can now delete frame 2. Okay, so from here, I want to make this be our template. So important to be able to name our different frames so we know what's supposed to be in each screen. So I'm going to double click on that and I'm going to call this template. Now, I want to take that template and recreate it so that all the other teams can work on that without being on top of each other, right? Because the whole idea here is that when we click on one of these sections, this screen is what's changing, except the persistent team, and then you're focusing over here. So what I can do is take this whole template, right-click on it, and go down to I can copy it and then right click, hopefully. Kidding me? Why can I not duplicate the frame? Okay, well then we'll do it old school. I'm gonna make a new frame. I'm going to change the size to 1920 by 1080. And I'm going to take everything that is in my template, copy it, go over to my frame 2 and paste it. And then we're going to call this frame 1 the nav frame. That did not. size right for me. Okay, hold on. Did this frame get adjusted in size? Yeah, this got adjusted. Someone must have resized this frame while we were working on it by accident, because this is all collaborative. So when you open this document, keep in mind that you guys are all working on the same document, like a Google Doc. And so just be careful to not make edits to what someone else might be working on at the moment. So in general, you want only one person working on your team at a time on this. So let me try that again. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to make a new frame. I'm going to adjust the size. And I'm going to paste into that. That's what I was trying to do. Okay. So nav, music, climate, and persistent. Okay, so if you guys want to get back into your groups, I know we don't have a ton of time, but what you guys are going to do is start working on getting things in here, right? Start thinking about what components do I need to add? Start adding your text shapes, start adding emojis and trying to lay things out, right? And again, you're going to focus on this part of the rectangle unless you were that persistent team, and then you're focusing over here. Make sense to everyone? We're feeling like we understand the concept of wireframing?
Will we be using your wireframe with the persistent and
Yes. Yeah. So you're going to just want to work inside of this existing kind of structure, because otherwise all the teams don't mesh together, right? And it's like you're looking at a bunch of different stuff.
yeah.
Who had only 3 members in their group?
Was the persistent value the same or down?
Then you can join the persistent team over here. One thing to note, guys, before you dive into Figma, there are whiteboards all around the room. You notice how I didn't dive right into Figma? I made this first. If you want to use those whiteboards or a notebook and kind of sketch out what you guys are thinking about before you start designing it in Figma, you are more than welcome to. And I've got markers up here. Just come up and grab them if you want to use them. Go for it. Yeah, take as many as you want. If you click on the frame and then go, maybe not. If you click on the frame over here on the left, it will show you the frame and then the dimensions right here.
I mean, the frame itself and the frame.
Oh, so the quickest way I can think to do that is if you put a rectangle in that area, it is 1176 by 854. Yep.
Yeah, this is what.
I got it. Give me 1 second. Oh, you're fine. Okay, you're good to go.